For this project, you'll need some small pieces of wood. It could be thin plywood like this, or it could be like a fence board type wood. You just want it to be fairly smooth. And then before you start, you'll want to sand the edges down and sand the surface as well to get it nice and smooth. You'll also need some clear contact paper, or it could be non-clear. The clear is just nice in case you want to do some tracing. You'll need scissors, some craft paint, and it could be just this inexpensive acrylic craft paint. They're sometimes about $1 a bottle. I got these at a thrift store. Then you'll need something like a credit card type, or like a grocery store card, plastic, and a Sharpie, or I should say a permanent marker. It doesn't have to be a Sharpie. That will be useful for drawing on the contact paper. And then this is something that I prefer over the scissors. If you're doing this not with kids, but yourself, this is a nice tool to have for this project. So the contact paper is just the clear contact paper, and here's my little piece of plywood. So first of all, I want to know where my borders are. In terms, I didn't cut the sheet exactly to the right size, so I'm going to just draw on the plastic side quickly, just the borders of the piece of plywood. And then once you've got that, you can figure out where you want to put your heart, and you can just freehand it, or I'll show you another trick later, but for this one, let's just do a freehand heart. Hard part is this curling paper makes it hard to see what the other side looked like. But the good thing is you can always repair what you did wrong. And I did this quite a lot when I drew these out. And then if I was getting confused by all my lines, I would just take another color and go around it again. Okay, so probably the simplest way to cut the heart out is just to make a clip in the plastic to put your scissors in, and then go around the edges. We're going to peel off the backing and place it down on the wood. So it's going to be, when you do it this way, when you cut it with scissors, and I will show you a different way in just a moment, it's going to be kind of floppy. So you'll want to start it, and it doesn't have to be perfect, of course, but you want to start it on one end and kind of flatten, and then remove the backing as you go down. And then you've got it on there, so you're almost ready to paint. But the next thing I would do, which seems to have worked quite well, is I just took a Sharpie. You could take anything you have around, maybe the back of a spoon, and I just kind of burnished down that plastic so that the paint doesn't go up underneath the edge. Now we're ready to paint. Okay, here's the other way I wanted to show you. You use a blade to cut out your design after the plastic is put down, then you cut. So that's what I'll show you next here. Okay, then when you have it all cut out, you have to start somewhere and just pry up a corner, and then you can take off all the plastic. And that way is kind of nice because you can cut right on the wood and you don't have the floppy plastic like you do the other way, but they both work equally well. And go ahead and burnish this way down as well. So here's a little trick if you want to make some more complicated designs. I'll just show you on a heart. Take a computer, put your contact paper over it. Oops, going to sleep here. Plastic up, and just draw around the whatever's on your screen, which is how I did those birds. And then it's kind of hard to draw when you're holding it onto a computer screen, but you can go back and touch it up later on, make it a little bit more even. Here's something I did just because I had the feeling that if the paints would not show up as well, especially on something on a dark wood, if the shapes were not coated with white. So I just put a little white paint on after I'd cut out the design, of course, and kind of carefully painted up to the edges. And instead of pushing it in possibly under the stencil, the contact paper, I just moved my brush around in a way where that would not happen. So this is just giving it an undercoat of white. This is optional. I have not tried it without doing this, so I'm sure it would work. The example I saw, the person was using canvas board, so it was already white. So that's why I decided to put a white undercoat on it. And so far my designs are bright and colorful, so I think I'll keep doing that. So that's an optional step. Grab some white paint and put an undercoat on. One thing you might notice after your white paint has dried, if you decide to do that step, is that the grain is a little bit raised. You can just take a really fine piece of sandpaper and kind of get off some of those fuzzy wood particles. Just do it real gently so you don't mess up your contact paper. See, this one here really had a grain problem. Probably just this particular piece of wood. And it depends on how wet your paint is, how much that will happen. Like I said, this is a kind of a optional thing if it bothers you how rough the wood became after you painted it. That's much smoother. Before painting, it's a good idea to kind of burnish down your contact paper again around those edges with your marker or spoon, whatever you have. Now for the fun part, the paint. So we will need an old credit card, or this works great. This is a Formica sample, and then your paints. So let's do the birds. You just squirt on more paint than you need. I'm going to do these birds in some blues and greens. And you just squirt it on along the top edge or whatever edge you want to work from. You could work from a corner if you like. Let's put a little teal in here. Okay, so then you take your credit card, and you can kind of vary what result you get with this with how hard you pull on the paint. And so if you pull gently, you're not going to have a lot of scrape marks. And you can go back through if you've missed some spots and come from different angles. And then you can make some patterns in there. So that's basically the technique, and it does make a big mess. So if you don't like what you did, you can scrape it more, scrape it off. Have that sort of minimal look. And there you can see the birds start to come out. You can also add to it later if you don't like what you did and you want to make some changes. You can scrape most of it off and add some different color in there. But I think I'll leave the birds like this. So now it's time to let them dry, and I just kind of wiped away some of the big globs of paint around the sides so I wouldn't have to wait quite so long. And I did go over the birds again with the dark blue because I thought the lighter colors were not going to show up on that light wood as well. And then here's the other birds ready to start drying. Removing the contact paper, just move slowly, and if you have any wet paint, just be careful not to slop that onto your wood. Hopefully you won't have any wet paint, but I tend to be very impatient. So that's how you take it off the contact paper. Mine was still very wet, so I would recommend waiting until it's completely dry. By the way, you can do this on paper too, especially if you have some really thick paper. I use just that same mixed media paper and it's kind of wrinkled. So if you don't have any wood or way to cut wood or access wood, just try it with paper. So when you get all your paintings done, you can coat them with some clear coat, just acrylic based clear, if you like, to give them a little more protection. You don't have to do that, that's optional. You can put some sort of hanger on them. You might be able to put like a sawtooth hanger that you could get at a hardware store if you don't want to see a hanger. They could also just be set up on a shelf. They don't need to hang on a wall. And consider making some of these and giving them out to your favorite friends. We have the Valentine's Day coming up, as well as Random Acts of Kindness Day. So you could make up some little hearts and pass them out to people that you know. Okay, I hope you enjoy this project.